the White House. That classified information belongs to us, the American people and the government. It's not a political party's or a partisan president and his staff. And that needs to happen yesterday, regardless of party or administration. But I think it also this story goes to the heart of, we can never assume again that people will do the right thing with classified documents. This is a cavalier, chaotic attitude that has been clearly exhibited here. And Exhibit A would be Mar-a-Lago.
Right. So, Kristy, Frank has talked a little bit about accountability, like reforming the entire system for dealing with classified information. But accountability could also take more mundane forms, like legal liability or criminal liability. So is there perhaps criminal liability for whoever took this binder, whether it was Mark Meadows in the Oval Office with a candlestick or someone else?
Certainly. I mean, there are a lot of questions. What information in the binder that was received by someone else or that's missing? How much of that was still classified? Was any of that declassified? Whoever was gaining access to it, what security clearance did that person have, if any? And then, as to the content, if it was classified or unclassified, regardless, was there national defense information in there? Willful retention of national defense information, as we know from the Mar-a-Lago case, that's a felony. So there are a lot of questions, but, when you're dealing with this kind of sensitive material, classified or not, this is the kind of material that you would expect to be guarded closely. And, Cassidy Hutchinson even saying there was a safe where this had to be. And Mark Meadows saying, well, you could just keep it in your drawer. And it's like, no, there need to be procedures for how to deal with highly sensitive information. And the idea that this was being given out and copied potentially to journalists and to others on the Hill, and nobody knows how many copies there were or where it went. This all just seems like a real mess when you're talking about national security secrets, as you said. Assets, real people who are, confidential sources, investigative methods, figuring out, how it is that the FBI is getting the information they're getting, information we're getting from other countries, our relationships. I mean, it's a legal problem, but it's also just a huge diplomatic mess as well.
Well, so you mentioned Mark Meadows telling Cassidy Hutchinson that this could simply be kept in her desk. Is that something that could be factored in if there was a criminal prosecution? I mean, does that go to the question of intent, that he knew that this was the kind of information that should be kept secret, but he was being very cavalier with it?
Right. I mean, if it's classified information, it sounds like at least, again, there are attempts to declassify it in the final days, but at least at some point that there was a lot of highly classified information in there. And keeping it in a desk drawer is not the way to do that. You keep that in, a special compartmented, information facility. Those have to, be approved by various intelligence agencies. This isn't something that anybody could just keep in their desk drawer. And Mark Meadows surely would have had the same training that anybody with security clearance gets to know that.
So, Frank, we, again, have this scenario where things are just being kept willy-nilly around the office. Obviously, there needs to be some kind of reform here. Are there other sort of more anodyne fixes that you can imagine for a White House going forward to make sure that these kinds of materials are kept under lock and key?
Yeah. So, for example, the tracking of documents, the numbering and watermarking of documents, again, a staff dedicated to this of career professionals, likely from the archives, not somebody who's had an hour video training, because they belong to the administration and they're just being briefed that, hey, this is what you got to do. This is what you have to save. And then there's got to be audits of it, right? All the rules in the world are no good unless someone's going, where is the document you got handed at 8 o'clock this morning? Where is it now? And why do you still have it? And, so that kind of auditing process, tracking process, watermarking, all of that needs to happen. We also understand that the redacted version of this document was copied multiple times by multiple people. So the question is whether you can instill some discipline on the copy machine. You can certainly have a tracker on the copy machine, copying what's been copied, know who did it. Everybody signs in with the password for the copy that's unique to them. All of that can be done. It seems none of that really existed in this White House.
All right, Frank Figliuzzi and Kristy Greenberg, thanks so much for that expertise. Later in the show, the New York